the internet is full of very scary things. There's a lot of, I guess one of them would be the conspiracy theories, that are all full of fear. And it's
right on
fear,
target.
yeah, fear, fear, fear in these conspiracy theories. And people who are fearful then latch onto those, because the thing is that once you see yourself as a victim,
Yes.
then you really go straight to the bottom. When you see yourself as a victim, you're lost, because victims can't do anything about it. You see, and what people do is they say, well, it's not my fault.
No.
It's this other thing. It's the aliens. It's the wealthy people. It's all, they point their fingers at all kinds of other things.
The mad God that created this.
Yeah, right. It's the angry God that created this mess, right? So what they're doing is they're trying to say, it's not my fault. Don't blame it on me. So they're trying to escape any responsibility for it. And then they end up as victims. And as a victim, you can't change anything. As a victim, you're stuck. You'll never, you don't outgrow it. You don't see through it. Once you're a victim, you are lost down at the bottom. So that is the absolute worst place for any consciousness to be, is seeing itself as a victim. That's a trap that is hard to get out of, because you define it as a victim means you can't help it. If you can't do anything about it, well, then you're stuck with it. Now all you do is get angrier and angrier and angrier and more depressed, until you just kind of burn yourself out and you commit suicide, or just get mad and are a nasty person and that sort of thing. It's just that's kind of the worst thing can happen to anybody. And these conspiracy theories that are built on fear, they suck people into that. People who are looking for an excuse and somebody to blame things on because they don't want to take responsibility for their own life and their own choices, they latch onto those things.
And
then they, like you say, they get sucked in, and they're part of that collective consciousness. And our reality, each one of us lives in our own reality, because our reality is what we interpret the information that we get. How we interpret that. We get information from the server, if you will, from the computer, from consciousness, and now we have to interpret that information. And your interpretation of that information is your reality. And we interpret things based on our beliefs, our fears, our love, our caring, all that is that makes us up. That's how we interpret it. I've heard a story, I don't know whether it's true or not, about a man in New York City who was terrified of elephants, wild elephants. Well, of course, there's no wild elephants in a big city. New York City is sort of like Sao Paulo. It's just a big urban city. There's no elephants walking around. But because he believed it, if he'd see a puddle someplace, he'd say, you see, that's an elephant's footprint. That's why that puddle's there. And if he'd see the wind blowing bushes around off on, a distance away, he'd say, see, there's elephants behind there shaking those bushes. So he saw signs of elephants everywhere. And that's why he was so terrified of these elephants. So yes, just as you say, you create a reality that is your fear. So whatever your fears are, you will tend to create that reality that you fear. And that's unfortunate. So if you fear that, this is an ugly place and everybody's out to get everybody else, you will tend to do things and say things and feel ways to create that place being that ugly. So if you have a very negative attitude about your life and about where you live, you will be helping your life and where you live to become more and more negative. So you become part of the problem, not part of the solution. So that's why the conspiracy theories that are based on fear, then they become part of the problem, not part of the solution, because that fear is actually helps create that reality that they fear.